Sitting down with men's basketball coach Ryan Moody here as part of the Hart Virtual Basketball Media Day. And Coach, it's hard to believe, but we're just around the corner from the start of the season. You've been in the gym for a couple of weeks now. Officially, obviously, off-season training started from pretty much as soon as the guys got here. But as a team, you guys have been in the gym for a couple of weeks. Just how do you think the preseason's gone so far?
I think it's gone well. We have a group that just competes their tails off every day in practice. I mean, we at times honestly have to back them off a little bit, and that's a good sign. You know, we've got a saying in our locker room, and kind of a saying that goes through our program: iron sharpens iron. And we want as many good players in that gym going and competing and getting after it as possible. We think that makes us better as a group. So I've been really happy. I think that some of our younger guys and new faces are still kind of learning the where to be and the timing and the rhythm and things like that. But we've got a really good group of upperclassmen that have experience, that are doing a great job of coaching them up and holding each other accountable and just kind of finding our way through that. This is a different group than we had last year, and there's different roles, like not just different roles, but maybe an increased role. Some guys are going to be asked to do more, and on both sides of the floor, and I think that's a learned thing, and we're going to have to kind of find our way through that. And we got a couple weeks yet, but it's been great to this point.
Well, before we take a look at maybe the guys and stuff moving this season, when did you finally just kind of pause, sit down, and have the opportunity to reflect? Obviously, last year's season did not end in a way that everybody would have liked it to have, but it was still a very successful, very historical season. When did you have an opportunity to kind of let that sink in and realize that it was a very good season for you guys?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, probably very shortly after we lost. I mean, in the national tournament. We moved on to the postseason, workouts and kind of getting back in the weight room and everything about a week and a half after that loss. So. I mean, you do this long enough, and the guys play, since they're growing up and in AAU and everything, and in high school. Like you learn, you never like to lose, and you never want to be the team that ends the season on a loss. But at the same time, you learn how to handle that loss. And yes, last year was a fun year, but honestly, about 2 weeks after that season was over, I started looking forward to this group and the challenges that we're going to have and the successes that we're going to have and how we're going to try to fit it all together. Because from a coaching standpoint and our coaching staff, the way we look at it, it's a puzzle. And we really want to help these guys get to where they want to go. And so last year is kind of that chapter's closed, and now we're on to this chapter, and I think that happened pretty quickly.
So you lose a number of guys to graduation, but you still have a number of guys that played key roles for you coming into this next season. What are you most looking forward to seeing out of some of those returning guys and out of your new group of guys as you move into the season?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, like I spoke about earlier, I think the change in roles is probably the most intriguing to me, because we're going to lose 2 second-team All-Americans in Adam and Tom, and leadership out of all 5 of those guys that were seniors that graduated. And so, there's a leadership vacuum there that I'm expecting our seniors, Colby and Wills, and then our juniors, Saxton, Chris, and Jaiden, to kind of step up. And these are returners. We've got a couple of new juniors, but these are returners. I think that leadership role will be easily filled. I trust these guys, and they've already shown that they're good leaders and strong, positive leaders. Now the vacuum or the leadership or the change in role on the floor, that's another story. We're going to ask a lot of guys to kind of up their game offensively, maybe play some different positions. I think, kind of what we throw out there this year could look a little different than in years past, maybe going small a little bit more often than we have in the past. And that's maybe a result of our personnel, and also maybe a result of the way the game has changed a little bit. But, I think this group, that's probably the most exciting thing, is to watch how this group is going to settle into those roles. And it's beginning. It's not an easy process. I mean, we've had a couple of practices where there's a lot of frustration because we're trying to figure those roles out. And the good thing we've got great guys, and they're willing to kind of fight through that process and that grind and work with each other and work with the staff to try to figure this out. And I believe we're all pulling the rope the same direction. All we want is to be as good as we can be. And that's just a little bit better than yesterday. And we just keep doing that. So that's kind of how we've done things since I've been here, and I'm looking forward to the challenge again this year.
Well, with the double round robin, that takes up quite a big chunk of your schedule this season. Did you find it harder or easier maybe to schedule some of your non-conference games this year as opposed to maybe years in the past with the success that you had this past season?
Well, to be completely honest with you, Josh, most of that was done before the season started. So, we only had to find, 4 or, I guess 6 or whatever it is. But, I think scheduling is always an interesting dynamic. I mean, I think if you're in a program that's had a tradition of success, it's always tougher to fill those non-conference games. We always believe in scheduling up. I mean, we really want to play the best people we can. So we're gonna play Morningside again. They're gonna be a top 5 team in NAI Division II in the preseason poll. They're gonna be really good. They have everybody back, and they stomped us last year. That's the honest truth. So that's gonna be a challenge. We've got John Brown coming in here, who was in the national tournament last year. We're going up to the GPAC Classic up at Concordia in Nebraska to play 2 really good teams in them and Hastings. So, Park is joining our league in a year, and they're always a national tournament contender. So we got them. So, our schedule, our guys want to play the best. We want to play the best. It tells you early where you're at and what you got to work on. We learned a lot from that loss to Morningside, the first game of the year last year, and really grew up from there. And so, I think playing a tough preseason schedule prepares you for this league. And the double round robin is I like it. It's grueling, but I like it. You get your true champion. You figure out who's the best. Everybody played each other twice, and so it's a grind. And I think it allows too for a lot of growth in January and February. We're playing conference games very early in November because of this 24-game league schedule. So, last year we were pretty good early after a couple of games and kind of figured it out. But most years in a season, you're getting better as the season goes on, and you're really starting to figure things out in January and February. So I anticipate that happening for us, and so we welcome the double round robin.
Well, finally, we have a return of a rivalry game. It'll be the second year we'll play it. It works out this year that Rockers is able to come into, and that's how you'll open the season. Or later this month,
Mm-hmm.
and just talk about what it means to last year you went down there. It was a very competitive game that went down to the wire. You guys really led for a lot of the second half, and then bounces one way or another, and they're able to get the win down there. What does it mean for you, to have being an alum, to have an opportunity to bring that game back to campus?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, first, the game is October 28th, Monday night at 7 p.m. It's an exhibition game for both of us, but we both want to win it.
Right.
And I know they've got a great program. They've got some good players back, and it was a great game last year. Awesome environment, packed house. It was phenomenal, and we're hoping for the same thing at our place. Pack it up with students and alums, and it means a lot because I actually played in that series a lot. But I think the biggest thing I want to communicate to anybody that's watching is that this current generation of Benedictine students and Rockers students didn't get that, and so embrace the old a little bit, because it was a really heated rivalry and it was fun and people had a great time with the whole day and even sometimes the whole weekend, like just getting ready for this game. And so we're playing it on a Monday night, maybe not quite as much fun because there's school that day, but we'd sure like to see, as many of our fans and students and Rockers fans, come up and support this thing because it's worth having. I mean, these two Catholic schools in the Midwest battling it out on the court, and it's been done for years and years. And so just because they're an NCAA Division II school and we're an NAIA school, we found a way to work it out. And I think it's going to be a good game. They're good, but I think we're pretty talented too. So we'll kind of see how that bears out on October 28th.
Well, that's been Head Coach Ryan Moody on this year's Hart Virtual Basketball Media Day. Sitting down now with Wills Wallrapp, one of the seniors here on this year's men's team. And as we mentioned with Jaiden, I had some questions submitted to us via social media. So the first one for you is looking back at last year, what are some things that you can take away and learn from the 2 postseason losses?
So 2 things that we've learned is complacency. You can't ever get complacent with your teams. As the year goes on, games are just going to get harder and harder. The talent's going to be top tier. You're going to be playing teams twice, 3 times. And then when you get to the national tournament, everybody's good. Anybody can beat anybody each night. So really just focusing on what we do and not being happy with how our results turn out.
And another one of those questions then was, what are you looking forward to most about this season?
This year, I think what everybody on the teams are looking forward to is just growth. Continually growing as a team, as players, with each other, and just passing on the torch from seniors down to freshmen and just teaching them the process on how to compete at this level.
All right, well, thank you, Wills.
Thank you.
We continue with the Hart Basketball Virtual Media Day. Josh Pound now joined by Jaiden Bristol, one of the members of the men's basketball team this year. And Jaiden, we tried to do things a little bit differently this year with the Virtual Media Day. We submitted on social media to get some questions from some fans. Mm-hmm. So I've given you a couple, so we'll just kind of sit down to the one thing that people were wanting to hear from the players specifically is what is the best thing that you've learned from a teammate?
I was not so much of like from a teammate for me, but from teams, as in to just like trust the process, because coming in my freshman year, we had a group that we didn't glue as well as maybe how we did last year, and just like going from how we did my freshman year, which I think we were 11-17 in that season, and then last year to 31-4, you could just like see the changes that the team makes when they're just like glued together and just everyone's on like has the same goal. So.
Okay, another one that they wanted to learn from you guys was what do you see as the biggest challenge to team success this season?
Well, we have a very young team this year, so I think it's on some of us upperclassmen to kind of bring the young guys up with us, and just as well as not being content with what we did last year, because that could be easy from the historical season we had last year. So I think that would just be big for our success.
All right. Thank you, Jaiden.
For sure.